Okay, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to take a look at two different regions of the fretboard, one that's sort of high up on the neck and one that's lower down here. And these are popular regions for playing the blues, popular zones of the fretboard for blues playing. And you're going to love this lesson if you've been trying to learn how to improvise and you're not really sure sort of where to start. We're going to take just a few notes and make a lot of music out of those few notes, focusing on these two zones. So here's what it sounds like. So in this video, we're going to talk about one of those zones, which is the higher zone. I'm going to show you what the notes are. I'm going to give you some visual shapes that you can apply to them. So if you're a visual learner and you see by shapes, you're going to totally love this. And if you'd like to join us for the part 2 video where we look at the next zone, which is sort of lower down on the fretboard, and also download the tablature for the entire solo and get the MP3 jam track for this so that you can practice playing everything we're going to talk through. You can get those extra materials by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP602. Okay, so this song that I'm playing is a little jam track that I put together in the key of A, but there's a lot of chords in it. This is not a straight 1-4-5, and I did this on purpose. And you'll see why in a minute. But let me just go through the chords real quick. So our 1 chord is an A, and then we go to a C sharp 7. Then we go to our 4 chord, which is D, then 4 minor, which is our D minor. We go back to the A, then we go up to a B. I know some of these chords are borrowed chords, but that's okay. And then we go back to that D minor, and then back to the A. Now the reason I did that was because if you're trying to play the chord changes, there's kind of 2 paths you can take when you're playing lead, when you're improvising a lead. I'm going to oversimplify, but path A would be to follow the chord changes. So all those chords that I called out, you're thinking about those chords. You're trying to play arpeggios or target notes from those chords while mixing with scales, and it's a very complicated way of trying to improvise. It sounds great, and it sounds very purposeful and meaningful and melodic when you do it that way, but it's also like you have to get your head in the game, and to me, I get anxiety when I do that. Now, every now and then I do, and it depends on the song and whatever. But in this case, what we're going to be doing is taking a different path, which would be path B, which is just staying in the key of the song. So that means we only have to know one thing. We don't have to worry about all those chords that I mentioned. We just need to know the key of the song. And the key of the song is in the key of A. That's all we need to know. So here's the first thing I want you to do is find your A note, since we're playing in the key of A, but find it on your 2nd string. I know a lot of guitar players struggle with the note names, especially when it comes to strings 2, 3, and 4. I'm just as guilty as any. But if you're not sure, you can always find that A note on your 1st string and then just match it, on the 2nd string. But that A note on the 2nd string would be up here on the 10th fret. So I want you to use your index finger and play that note, and that's going to be our anchor note. And so from here, we're going to, on that same string, on string 2, we're going to play the 12th fret, and then with our middle finger, we're going to play the 11th fret 3rd string. So if you look at these 3 notes, from where I'm looking at it, it looks like a little triangle. Like I'm looking like this middle finger would be like the tip of the triangle or a pyramid. That's just sort of how I see it. So these notes would be 3 of your major pentatonic scale notes for the key of A. And this is your anchor. And if you're wondering what pattern this is, this would be like pattern 4 of the major pentatonic scale. This note, this 12th fret 2nd string, we can do a full bend on that note, so that actually gives us a 4th note. So now we have So we've got this little triangle here that you can do so much with. I mean, a lot of great music comes out of this. Now let me show you one other little shape here that's connected to this. Where I've got my ring finger on this 12th fret second string, we're going to let that be the corner of a rectangle or a square, depending on how you look at it. But 12th fret up to the 14th fret on the second string, and we'll do the same thing on the first string, 12, 14. Those are the notes that we're going to be looking at. Now there's going to be a few extra notes as we get into the lead, but that's where most of it came from. And what's cool about this is these are just major, everything I'm showing you here is just the major pentatonic scale. We're looking, this is pattern 4, this would be coming up into pattern 5. Just a little piece of each of those patterns. But what's cool about that is, even with that, even if you get nothing else but just that, I could play a straight up 1-4-5 blues in the key of A. Watch this. There's the 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Now I just went up into that next little box. There's the 5 chord. Right? So I'm able to improvise. Now I realize I'm having to jump back and forth. I don't have a jam track. But you can hear where I'm going with it just with that. And so that's the region that I used to play this first part of this lead. So let's listen to this first little section of it and talk about what's going on. So everything that I played there was all played on the second string, and it was just this 12th fret and the 10th fret. It was just those 2 fretted notes. There were bends, obviously, on this 12th fret. So it's like... That's all I did. And, you know, it's a lot of this is going to shine a light, and this is why I like making it very simple like this and just sort of focusing on a few notes. It shines a light on your intonation and your little nuances that you do, your vibrato, how well you're able to bend. And it makes you kind of focus on those qualities, which is what gives you your sound. That's what makes you sound like you versus sounding like B.B. King or sounding like Jimmy Page or some other guitar player, is the little nuance that your fingers are going to do. You're going to sound different than me, but you're going to want to try and find your sound. And this kind of thing allows you to do that. So when, you know, for those of you that have the jam track, put on the jam track and just take those notes. You know, and just work on your vibrato and try and make it sing like what you're hearing in your head. So it came from this 10th fret second string and slid with my ring finger up to the 14th fret on the second string. So I came up into that box. Little hammer on there, and then back to that anchor note. I keep going back to that A note because it's the key of the song, and it's just a safe place to sort of land. So for me, when I'm playing out of these shapes, I kind of keep that index finger sort of always there, or always ready to go back to that A note. And then at that point, I came down to that 11th fret third string. Then I played, right? So that's just that little bend and release on the 12th fret second string. And actually, I didn't go all the way. It's somewhere between a full bend and a half bend. If I do a full bend, it's major pentatonic. If I do a half bend, it's minor pentatonic. So I have options here with that 12th fret second string. That's another cool little takeaway. So you get just that one note there. You can hear how happy that sounds. If I go a full bend versus, it sounds a little sadder to do a half bend. And the second time through, we're just going to repeat a lot of this. I went from here, my anchor note, into this second little box, by 14th fret all the way up to the 12th fret first string, and then watch this. Now this is not in that box that I showed you. And this is where I did touch on one of the notes from that chord. So what I ended up playing was that 13th fret first string. And you can hear that's the third note of that C sharp chord. That note. And so my ear just kind of knew that. And then this is one of those things where I did not sit and plan it out. I had no clue what was happening other than I just could hear. I knew the progression went from this. So I could hear just that one little step up. It just sort of fits. And that's one of those things you just got to do over and over again. The more of this kind of stuff you hear and you listen to music and listen to those little things going on, I probably heard this somewhere else and I just ripped it off. And then after that 13th fret first string, I came up to the 14th fret. And then watch this. I hit this note. And this was just a B.B. King move. I heard a B.B. kind of lick there. And that's hitting this note. That's my A note. So I knew that note's going to work. So this is another thing that, you know, like B.B. does a lot when he's playing a blues in the key of whatever song. You can always find that high octave of the key of the song. And that's a great little note to hit, and just hit the one note and slide down, just like B.B. does. So I hit that, and then I came back into the triangle, so into 12th fret second string. All right, so I realize I'm veering off course a little bit in terms of the simplicity, but this is still simple stuff. So this next phrase, let me show you what I'm doing here. So it's 9, 10, 11, 12 on the first string. And then I just slid back into that 9th fret. And then watch this. 10th fret second string, 11th fret third string. Now this 10th fret second string and 11th fret third string we've already talked about, right? They're in the little triangle. These notes, forget the ones in between. Those are just chromatic notes, but these two are just in your major pentatonic scale. So if you visualize major pentatonic scale pattern 4, it looks like this. So these notes are at the top, on the top string, or on that one string. So you can play those notes in between chromatically, and you get that kind of jazzy little sound. Now you don't want to land on those notes, but as passing tones, they sound great. And by the way, you can do that with any of these shapes that have a fret in between. So where we've got the triangle, you can play that chromatic note. Same with this box up here. You can play those notes in between. And then to close out this little phrase, to blues it up a little bit more, everything's been major pentatonic-y, I went, which is the minor pentatonic. Let me show you the notes. So it's on the third string, we go 9th fret up to the 11th fret, and then a half bend. And then walk it back down. And then we're going to come down to the 12th fret 4th string, 10th fret 4th string, down to the 12th fret 5th string. And so these notes down here would be the bottom part of minor pentatonic scale, pattern 3. You can hear that. So that just, you can see where these major pentatonic scale patterns and minor pentatonic scale patterns overlap. So we were just doing major, right? There's our little triangle. But then right here, you've got your minor pentatonic scale pattern 3. And I love where these things overlap, because real quickly I can pivot in my mind from major to minor. So I can go like this, bend into the minor, and now we're playing minor. Now it's sounding much bluesier. And we can go back into major. So that's one of those things that you just have to use your ear, and over time you'll get better at it. But in the beginning, if all of that starts to sound overwhelming, just know that you've got this triangle shape, and then you've got the little rectangle. right next door to it. And remember where your root note is in relationship to the triangle, and you can access that anywhere for any song. All you need to know is the key of the song. And I would encourage you to try this. Take a blues jam track, any of them that you want. As long as you know the key that it's in, just find that note name on your second string. So if it's in the key of G, if it's a blues in G, you just find your G note, and now you've got your G major pentatonic scale. So you got that little box there, and then you got your minor pentatonic, you know, right down below that. And I hope you're starting to see this. You've got this chromatic, right? So that's how it works, is just getting one little idea, understanding how it relates to the song, and growing from there. You know, you can always get as complicated as you want, but some of the best music is just kept simple like this. All right, we're gonna end the part 1 video right here. I'll see you in part 2, where we'll go over the second half. We'll look at a different zone and explore another part of the fretboard. Oh, and if you don't mind, could you leave a comment below and just let me know the pacing on this? Was this good? Did you have some light bulb moments where you really started to get some things? Was any of it confusing? I always appreciate that feedback, and I do read through all the comments. And I try and respond to all of them that I can anyway. All right, I appreciate that feedback. We'll see you in part 2.